Okay, so I'll kick us off. I'm super excited for this call because Brian and I have now spoke a couple times. Uh, Really smart individual, and also what I've really gathered is he's a very giving individual. And I don't know how many of you have watched the interview we did with Bob Berg. If you haven't watched it yet, you could go into the classroom section of school and watch that. And we start off with Bob Berg because we wanted to set the foundation of being givers first, um, and giving to the community because that's how it's going to help to grow the community and everyone serving each other, so on and so forth. And obviously, the premise of the inner game community is the inner game. So Brian's going to be sharing with us his story first about um, well, I'll just let you know, Brian. I'd love for you to first kick us off with quick little snippets of your upbringing, because I think that leads right into how you became resilient, and then hopping into the company that you started, and then that struggle that you were struggling with, right? And then you had that mindset shift in awareness, where then it took you from um, not financially struggling, but the business itself just was at a standstill. And then a couple years later, he went to a nine-figure exit. So I think we have some good insights here to learn from Brian. And then also, I'd love for you to get into a little bit more of the importance of niching down, because that's what really accelerated his growth. And then if we have enough time, I would just love to end a little bit with what you teach folks about digital transformation to create those force multipliers in their business to help them to add zeros to their revenue, because that's what Brian is known for. So he's a serial entrepreneur, investor, business strategist who's helped scale multiple companies from zero to hundreds of millions. So I think we have a few things that we could learn from him. And just real quick, housekeeping for everyone. If everyone could just keep yourselves muted until the end. And if we have enough time, we'll open it up for some questions for Brian. Cool? So, Brian, stage is yours. Please introduce yourself and share some of your story. Excited to hear about it.
Sounds good. And I think we're gonna have some back and forth too, right? You're gonna help me out with some questions to help
Oh, yeah.
kind of guide
Yep.
the conversation there, Victor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, hey everybody. Greetings from Clearwater, Florida here. And yeah, I like to sometimes go back to the beginning. Short version is I was actually born and raised in Haiti. My mom actually did medical missions with kids with TB of the bone before she even met my dad for 9 years. So we go way, way back. I realize I'm getting older at this point, but my mom must have gone to Haiti in like the 70s. And the reason I share that on a business topic, one is it partly defines why I'm weird. The other one is I think it defines why I think differently. And the example that I think I gave to Victor when we were chatting, and Marcus knows this as well from us hanging out here last year, if, for example, in Haiti, it never got colder than 60 degrees. And so my mind works in Fahrenheit. So if you ask me, hey, what's the temperature today? It's like, 65, 70, 80, 90, right? And we were evacuated in 1993 when Haiti got really, really bad. It was bad before then, if you didn't know, but it got more bad. And then we actually went to Russia. We lived in Russia for 4 years. And in Russia, we never saw temperatures hardly above 60 degrees. And so if you ask me about cold temperature, I think in Celsius. So skiing was always like 0, -10. That was like the perfect. And I had to remember that at -20, they were going to close school because your eyes could freeze over. Just kind of those basic things that you have to know about freezing, right? I still remember going where you could like blow like this on your hand with your breath, like, and it would snow like in my glove, like as I'm walking to the school and like, I don't know, second grade basically. So anyway, I think it kind of defines like what I do now, and I've lived in over 30 countries and moved around and had some success and some failure, and I think that kind of makes me who I am. That I look at things a little differently and a little weird and a little upside down, and trying to harness that for ideas and creativity and helping other entrepreneurs and other CEOs add a zero to their business. sometimes it is hard to do, and other times it's just a solution that they can't see just because they're looking at it from the other side. So that's kind of about my way background, and then how that ties into what I do today.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you for that. And now let's hop into, if I'm remembering correctly, was it an IT agency that you had?
It it was, yeah. So right out of college, I had a bent towards technology. I found out during high school. Actually, my first job was at Stein selling clothes. I learned how to sell clothes pretty well, but I very quickly learned that I could make way more money in technology. I was making whatever per dollars an hour, and I could charge a lot more for computer repair. So I actually started and sold another company in high school, and then fast forward out of college, it was just the first thing I knew that I went. And so we started what was called, or it's not as popular today. I'm sure some of you know, but a managed services provider, or an MSP. And the way that I like to explain it is we did everything for everybody.
Mhm.
If you needed your phone fixed, or you needed a video conferencing or TV or email, like whatever it was. And we all remember those days more than today, right? My kids are not growing up learning how to use Windows 98 or anything remotely similar, right? They're all in touch world. But like all of us, like we remember having to turn on a computer and have a start menu and viruses and all that stuff, right? And so we did that for about 3 years, and we did pretty well. Like Victor kind of alluded to a little bit, but we I don't remember exactly if we hit seven figures, but we were pretty close to it. Like we were making great money, like great margin, like no problem. And we were probably growing. I mean, once we got off the ground, we're growing at a solid 10-15%, easily, right? But our growth kind of roughly looked like this because we were doing everything for everybody. And that's kind of the first section of that business, was really an IT or MSP company.
Yeah, so if there was struggle, is there some struggles that you could share in there from being the everything to everybody and any frictions or frustrations that it was causing for you and the team and anything like that going on?
Yeah, absolutely, with lots of problems. So one thing that I definitely experienced firsthand, because I was, let's just call it 25 at the time, 25, 26. And it's something that I see um, dozens of entrepreneurs and CEOs deal with right now today, is that doing everything for everybody meant it was almost impossible to hire people
Mm,
because we had no processes, we had no SOPs, we had no job specificity. And so it got really frustrating because I would hire people that I thought were good. If you've heard the adage, hire for, attitude, train for aptitude, you name it. Well, I would hire people that were my friends, that I knew really well, etc. And it got really frustrating because maybe they came in and they knew a lot about Windows, but they knew nothing about data centers. And so then I'm the CEO, I'm the sales guy, I'm doing the marketing, I'm having to travel. I was on an airplane literally every week and sometimes multiple times per week. And then I've got this new hire who maybe I did everything I could by the book in a way, right? So they've got great character, great references, onboarded, and they're like a month, multiple months into working for me, and it's like, oh, they still don't even know how to log into this video system, and they don't know how to log into that customer. No, they've got Blackberries. You can't do that with them, and so it became really frustrating. And I'm not exaggerating if I say I was often working till midnight or 1 a.m. many days. And then I tried to scale at that time by adding an office in New Delhi, India. And I love outsourcing. I love a lot of overseas operations. Adds a lot of value with a 24/7 technical center. But then I was trying to solve my own problems that I had created 24 hours a day instead of just 12 hours per day. And I had like virtually no social life. And there's just no way because I can hardly go out to eat without, you know, literally having to answer my phone because somebody needed a password reset or they needed to know some information that I didn't have documented, frankly, or not documented at a level that I could scale my team. And so I was really honestly close to burning out, even though I was profitable. And in some ways I had fairly happy customers.
Yeah, so the lesson I'm hearing is one, you didn't have a scalable model because you're everything to everyone. And then what ended up happening is you attempted to scale before you had a scalable model, which just added to your plate, which doubled your workload and stress all at the same
Right.
time. Yeah, so
So,
what was, yeah, go
oh,
for it, Marques.
I was gonna say, so Brian, what was the Outback story? So I've seen, and I've talked to you about this before, and I've heard it because, Brian and I have done some work together. I've been at his facility in Clearwater, does a lot of great things, has a lot of great resources, and really does a great job of what he's really niched to do. But Brian, can you tell everybody about the Outback story and how that really got you on a trajectory to turn everything around?
Absolutely, Marcus, and the Outback story, the classic one. Yeah, so for some reason I was in over with where my parents lived, and it was just my dad and I. My dad took me to Outback Steakhouse, and he's a brilliant person, man. He's an engineer, very, very smart, but not a business guy. Just so you know, he's not like, a business mogul, not an advisor. And he's just kind of sitting there, like, because he loves me and, how's things going. And he kind of had the conversation about, like, you're burning out, like, trying to understand how everything's working. And kind of his epiphany and question for me was, he knew that I had one customer in particular. So if you can imagine with me, in the world of IT, right? I'm charging some dollars per hour for IT consulting, right? And then I had one single customer that needed help with their data center. And they were paying well into the five figures per month on retainer with a 5-year contract. I don't remember the exact number, but if you imagine with me, it was like $10,000 a month instead of my typical transaction being like $300 to $500. And my dad basically said to me, and this is the part that Marcus knows, he's like, "Well, why don't you just go get more of those customers? Like, why are you trying to add and onboard more of your small business or big business, but just transactional products, if you will? What about the other guys that are just paying you 10 grand? Like, aren't you doing a great job for them?" I'm like, yeah, they're doing a great job. They never call, they don't really need anything. Like, they just sit there and use my data center. And I put, I think a hundred or a couple hundred grand worth of servers in a data center that I never even went to. Did it all remotely, and we literally just sat there and ran their accounting software. I mean, it was the boringest business. It was a product most people had never heard of called Microsoft Dynamics NAV. It only worked in a specific use case for nonprofit organizations that did what's called fund accounting. So all of us, assuming we're all business people, we're doing accrual or cash-based accounting, right? That's how you run your business. Well, if you raise money, you're doing fund accounting, right? So you're raising $1 million and you have to fund account it. So Microsoft had this product, and that's all it does. And so my dad was like, "Why don't you do more of that?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm not doing more of that. I should probably do more of that." So I started looking around, and I found out there's virtually nobody else in the entire world that focused on that fund accounting software. I mean, there were a couple. There were, two. We found somebody in Europe, and we found, somebody maybe on the west coast of the U.S., I think, and there were a couple scattered, but nobody was really the lead or advertised it. And we're like, you know what? I'm gonna go all in. Like, we're just gonna do fund accounting data center technology software. We looked around the world, and we decided um, that actually we were probably the biggest and we were probably the best, and we would call up Microsoft. And if you can imagine, too, most businesses, like even a big business, like 50 employees, 250 employees, often only have one or two accountants, right? So even people using this particular product often only had one or two or three seats. And our customer, we had 400 seats. I mean, they're huge, they're massive. And so we called Microsoft, and they're like, "I don't think it's a real thing. Like, are you sure you have 400 users of Nav in your data center?" We're like, "Yeah, we do." Like, and sure enough, they pulled the record. And so, yeah, that was the turning point, Marcus, is we decided we were going to be the best in the world at Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And it was like a game changer for us because all of a sudden our support tickets and revenue and everything that was tied to these microtransactions became less and less important. And we could just focus on one single thing that was making us a lot of money. And then as I'm kind of setting up the conversation for, hiring became really easy
Yeah.
because now I just had to find a really good technical person. I had to train them on one thing. It was a little more complicated, but if you follow my logic, it was essentially just one thing versus everything else that we used to do.
Yeah.
So,
So
well,
yeah, go.
so what I heard, ladies and gentlemen, is that he ended up getting advice from his dad to niche down to something very specific. Am I saying that right, Brian? And
Yes,
basically
exactly.
have something that people can quote unquote only within reason buy from you. Now, of course, you had competitors, things like that, right? But you made something that people could only buy from you, correct, Brian? In theory.
Correct, exactly.
Brian, if anybody on this call I work with is a speaker, this is why we talk about create your custom signature keynote titles and descriptions, something they can only get from you. If they hear leadership talk or mindset talk or culture talk, that's not going to like, well, I can get that anywhere. When they hear the ego mistake from 8 figures to 825 per hour, or they hear thriving through the eye of the storm, because I'm a former Howard Bison and Bison go into the storm, right, Brian? It
That's
niches
right.
us down and they want you, you're in more demand and you can charge more for your product because they feel if they don't get it from you, they can't get it anywhere. Am I saying that correct, Brian?
That's exactly correct. For me, I don't mind telling you all how stupid I was because I was really stupid, right? Like, but if you think about it, it's all around us, right? Like if like I've got little kids, it's an easy example, but one of my friends is like a heart doctor. To be clear, her husband is my friend, really, but his wife, we know him too. She is like a super specific heart doctor for babies, infant and yearling. Well, guess what? All of us, I think, would agree that if we had a baby that needed a heart surgery, we don't want to go to a family doctor. Like, no matter how good they are, we don't want that. We want the lady or guy that has done 100 or 1,000 heart surgeries on a 1 month old baby, and like we'll fly anywhere in the world to find that person. And the same thing applies in investing and in working out and all these other areas of life. And somehow like we just forget as business people sometimes.
You know,
Victor?
yeah, yeah. I think something to add to this because I know we have a lot of experts and consultants in the community. Is basically it's niching down, and I think it's Alex Ramosi that says it. Uh, Riches are in the niches, right? I'm not a big
I know
advocate
he
of,
quotes it.
yeah,
It's a classic one.
yeah. Um, so in some cases, I think it's good to go crazy niched. And I'm not going to dive too much into that. What I'm trying to get into is once you find your lane in your niche and you're not trying to serve everyone, because whenever I work with coaches, a lot of times of, yeah, I help this person, I help that person, I help this person. It's like, yeah, but like, what's one person you could help and that you could speak to? And it helps in the business, it helps everything. It helps the content that you can now create, the speeches, right? If you're out there giving speeches to bring clients to you. Um, and then in Brian's case, the type of people that you hire, your SOPs that you create, the support tickets that you have to answer, right? It's not going to be all over the place. It's going to be in this one lane that you're serving. So a question for you, Brian, through your story, you kind of answered this, but if if I was that business owner, let's say I had a digital marketing agency, and I served all kinds of clients, what advice uh, would you have for me or anyone in the audience uh, on trying to find the one thing that sets them apart? How would you help or give advice on something like that?
Yeah, great question. So I don't want to hijack the meeting, and again, thank you, Marcus and Victor, for inviting me here. I was not planning to share this, but I actually just found just like a little PDF file that I made like a couple of years ago. Do you mind if
Yeah,
I share it real quick?
go for it, please.
And I'm not. You can take screenshots of this or whatever you'd like. You can tell me if this is helpful or not. I think it'll actually directly answer your question. Um, this is kind of what it took for me to zero in and share a little bit. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
So there's five things that I realized that I needed to do, and this is something that I think all of us can apply with any business. Is laser focus on three things. One is laser focus on one single product that you're the most
Hmm.
successful with, have the happiest customers and the highest margin. And if you don't know what that is, you can probably figure it out relatively quick. Like, especially the way that that's worded, I think, is just think through what product or service you have that you've made the most money from, quite frankly. Like, who are your happiest customers and that you have the highest margin?
Hmm.
And that's probably your answer, right?
Yeah.
The second angle is think about who the buyer persona is. And I know a lot of us are tempted to say, and I hear this every week, oh, well, we can sell to anybody. Well, you can.
Hmm.
However, if I could go get you 100 at your front door, you could probably be a little more specific. And you could probably tell me that they're, you know, and I know sometimes profiling is not exactly popular these days, but you can profile people business wise. Well, they're a CFO of a publicly traded company, and they have to be domestic operations. Like, it's okay to figure out, like, I can't work with nonprofits, so I can't work with international. Like, it's okay to politely like not work with other things and find out what that persona is. And then the third one is then clarify your message. And so many entrepreneurs and CEOs of all verticals and size businesses still miss this. It's not exactly how much you know about your business,
Mm.
but think about if you sat down on an airplane and were explaining your business, could that person explain it to their next meeting? Like, yeah, I just sat next to Victor and he does X, Y, and Z. And if you can say that, then your message is clear.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, this getting super clear on this helps you with everything from the product you create, the people you hire, to the content you create, to your marketing message, which a lot of folks, coaches, consultants, experts, they usually have a struggle generating consistent quality leads because they're not clear on this.
Exactly. And then the next four, I can spend as long as or as short as you want on this type
So
of
go
stuff.
for it.
It's something I'm very passionate about. But the second one is just be consistent. Just don't change. I mean, I can save you guys tens of thousands of marketing dollars or hundreds of thousands. Don't change. What I mean is don't change when it's working. Just for clarity, if it's not working, you should probably change something.
Yeah.
But like once you get in a habit, if you're looking at scaling, like don't confuse people. Don't change your brand and your logo and your location every year just because you think something, right? Like be some level of consistent.
Hmm.
Then you figure out how to disrupt. Yeah, then you can look for how to get an unfair advantage to do something different that all your businesses and competitors are not doing. That's something that I personally do a lot of coaching around is helping people, use technology or whatever it is out there that they help break the mold. The MVP is kind of a whole nother thought track of like if you're not sure what you're doing, you're trying to launch an app or you're trying to launch a new course, minimum viable product. That's the open book answer in my opinion. Um, and then
Yeah,
fifthly,
I think that's an important one, Brian. Both of those were. So, what advice would you give on someone to think through what they do to be a disruptor, and then explain a little what the MVP is?
sure. So glass ceiling or a mold often has a bad connotation, but what I mean by that is find out what glass ceiling or mold or like normal thing that's in your industry that exists that doesn't need to be there. And that's
Mm.
why I put this here. Think along the lines of setup fees. Like if you and all of your competitors charge setup fees, think about whether you need to charge setup fees.
Mm.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That would be something really disruptive, right? Is all of a sudden we have no setup fees, subscriptions, right? Um, you know, are you not doing subscriptions, but you could, or are you in an industry where everybody does subscriptions and you would flip it the other way, right? Be like, well, hey, we're not going to do that. Think about bundles, think about value-added services, think about like a mold that's in your space. And I don't think it matters if you're a coach, a speaker, a a brick and mortar type of a business or online e-commerce sales. Like there probably are things that you're doing that you're assuming you have to do that you don't have to. And again, I'm not talking about legality. I'm not talking about licensing. Like, yeah, you should keep doing that. But one mold is out there that doesn't need to be there that you can frankly break.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, and share a little bit about the MVP, what the MVP is, because some of the folks in here probably do have intention to like create a course. In fact, the MVP just doesn't have to only be a course. It could be a product of some sort or service. But yes, please share what the MVP is.
Sure. So the minimum viable product, I don't know if he invented it. I kind of tend to give credit to Tim Ferriss. If any of you have read kind of his 4-hour type
Mhm.
of products, 4-hour work week, things like that. I'm not sure. I'm sure he probably learned it from somebody else. But the concept is just what's the basic level of something that can prove whether you are right or wrong, quite
Mhm.
frankly, right? So let's say if we were all to get together, we're like, hey, we want to launch an online training service. It doesn't matter what the industry is. Rather than going and recording and spending thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on producing an online training or whatever, we could all grab our iPhone and put something on YouTube for free
Mhm.
and find out, as long as it's good. Like, I'm not saying you want to do something halfway, right? But like, as long as it's good quality, good content, we can test something pretty easily with a free YouTube video. And the same thing with an app. You don't have to spend 100 grand on an app to be perfect or to find out it's not perfect. You can spend 1 to 10% of that on something mobile. Maybe it's a mobile website version. Just think about what's the lowest level to produce that somebody will transact with you,
Yeah.
will share it, will watch it, will consume it, will learn it, will interact with it. And I think that simple mindset shift really can save you a ton of time and a ton of money.
Yeah, because now the reason I love the MVP is whenever I'm helping someone develop a course or a coaching program, I just tell them, let's create the offer first. Let's create the messaging, right? So it's getting back to
Mhm.
niching down everything that you shared at the very beginning, and then let's sell it first. Let's sell it and then deliver it when after people buy it. Like you could just deliver it live. So now it's you're actually testing the market to see are people even interested in this? Are they going to pay me before I spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours on developing this thing to find out the market was like, no, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, please continue, man.
Exactly. Well said. I think you said it more eloquently than I did, Victor. I love it.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Brian, I have a question for you. So I'm hearing all this MVP, business, technology, and technology has been a force multiplier in your business. It's really helped you scale. Like Victor said, once you got the offer down, once you were able to leverage, right? And I saw that's why I would bring this question up. Is what are some big mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making when it comes to leveraging technology or lack thereof? Because I tell people all the time, Victor, we're talking about this between AI and systems and all the different things that are out there. There are ways to scale the business to a larger level. But what are you seeing that some entrepreneurs are missing when it comes to scaling using technology?
Mm. That's a really good question, Marcus. I think it's about your podcast so well. How long do we have? Do I have like an hour to answer that question?
Well, this is what Marcus just asked right now is mainly what I wanted us to talk about, which I think it's leading into perfect. Um,
Of
what
course
you
it is,
shared
Victor.
previously, but
I asked it. Why do you think it's? Of course it's perfect.
Well, I love answering. This is like this is therapeutic. I absolutely love talking about this kind of stuff. So, first of all, talk the myths, and then I'll talk about the opportunities. So I think what a lot of people that I talk to get wrong, and again, I don't know everybody, but I talk to a lot of people every week. I talk to probably dozens of business owners easily every week, and I think a lot of people get wrong with technology is looking at the shiny thing, for lack of better terminology. They find the thing that is the most shiniest. And what they often don't realize or learn the hard way is it's kind of like picking up a hammer when you don't have a nail, right? If you've heard the tool analogy of, if you have a hammer, every problem is a nail, right? Um, Again, I mentioned I've got little kids, and I've had to teach them that a hammer does not work on a screw. It just doesn't. You will hurt yourself. I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry. I'll get you a band-aid, but it will not work, right? You have to use a screwdriver on a screw. And so I think when you hear things about AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, crypto, blockchain, and I hear it all. I have a front seat row to some phenomenal technology. It may not solve your problem that you have, and so I think that's the one piece that people get wrong by adopting technology too fast. So I think that's the first answer to your question, Marcus. Do you want to dive in on that part? Otherwise, I think I can speak to the second part too.
No, please continue.
The second part, I think, is assuming that the way that you're doing it can't be solved by technology. And I do business coaching, and I just had a similar conversation to this exact question last week with one of my clients I've been coaching for 6 months, and they have a presupposition um, that there's a process in their business that they finally told me about after 6 months that is nuts, frankly. It requires a ton of communication back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between two people in their company, trying to remember the status of a project of where things are. And sometimes that's where having a third party look at your problem, right? They can kind of help you map something out. Is that technology typically is often bad at innovation. And this is where I think a lot of people get wrong with AI, frankly. They don't realize that AI is trained on actual data. It's not, they call it generative AI, but generative AI is just generating more of what it already knows, right? By the way, maybe a whole other topic for a different day. But technology is really good at repetition. That's what it does. And so we help a lot of our clients with marketing automation. What's that task that needs to happen all the time that if you use technology for it, it will do it accurately, um, without failure, without error, on repeat? Is it a form fill on your website? Is it lead capture? Is it process automation? Is it invoicing your customers? Like, think about those things. Those are the things that we miss as entrepreneurs, that technology could absolutely automate. And Microsoft used to have a word that I love to this day, and they call it the road to repeatability. So I can't take credit for that, but you can all write it down if you want. What's the road to repeatability in your business? And take a look at what you're not doing with technology to help with that part.
The road to repeatability. I think that's great. Vic?
yeah. So if I'm kind of repeating back with the meaning, it's looking at your business. Is there a process is there a constant process that is always having to be repeated that could then be automated to some degree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And is
Calendaring
there,
is an easy one, right? And as prevalent as calendaring can be, I mean, we all use or probably are familiar with HubSpot or
Mhm.
Calendly, even as as much as that's out there, I can't tell you how many businesses I talk to every week that haven't really embedded that in their business.
Yeah.
And how much back and forth and reminders are you doing with your customers that you don't need to do? It can all be automated. And I think a lot of business owners that I talk to are maybe afraid of depending on the technology for the automation when in fact they should be embracing it as their best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a couple big buckets that you've noticed with a lot of the companies that you work with that usually they need to start here at these points? Have you noticed that at all? Like a common thread?
With repeatability?
Yeah, or like, yeah, repeatability, whether it's using AI or an automation to systematize and simplify their business.
Yeah, I think it often falls in operations category, right? Because operations is in from a certain standpoint the least creative in most businesses. Sales, you may have to be like really innovative and get out there and hunt or whatever. And marketing, many times you've got to get out there and be yourself and do webinars or whatever. But operational is pretty boring in a lot of businesses. I don't want to offend anybody. Maybe your operations are super awesome. But in my business, they're boring, right? And that's probably a really good place to start for many of us is to find out what transaction. Think about calendaring, think about payment processing, think about gathering data from customers, think about reminding, following up with people. Again, almost every vertical, I've seen it with pool companies, with technology companies, with I don't even know. I mean, our studio here, I run a little video studio here as well. I mean, just so many things. There's like repeating processes that that frankly technology could really play a hand in.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, Vic, I have a question, and then we can come back over to you, or we can open up for questions if you want to have it for the group. You talk a lot, Brian, about people don't want to embrace, AI or change or technology, but it's been proven a lot of times, and usually time and time again, the disruptors are the ones that have the most success or most fulfillment when it comes to business. Take Jeff Bezos with Amazon, right? Was a disruptor. Elon Musk with Tesla was a disruptor. When Bill Gates came out with Microsoft, that was a disruptor. Every time you turn around, you see these disruptors or these people coming out with new ideas, new things. Those are the ones that usually hit. Now, of course, you have some things where don't hit, but what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, Victor's been really helping me see this a lot clearer, is AI takes away a lot of the emotion, takes away a lot of the uncertainty, and it gets systems set up to have things done predictable, flow right, and like you said, that repeatability process, which is key for any successful business. Why do you think some people, Brian, are afraid of embracing AI or change in that regard?
Good question. Mhm.
Yeah, great question. You're 100% right. I think from the conversations that I'm in on is it's just uncertainty, quite frankly, right? Uncertainty or a concern for not having mastered that technology, right? So I feel like I've probably had a conversation too this week already where people are like, well, I don't understand AI. I don't understand that particular element. And so I don't have time to understand that element and I don't have costs set aside specifically for it. And so they kind of categorically rule it out. It seems pretty polarizing. Like I have lots of conversations every week where people are like, "Oh my goodness, I use XYZ app, right?" And I there's millions of apps at this point, right? Softwares, you name it. I use this one. It's revolutionized my business. Like, that's awesome, great. And then the next conversation could be, well, I don't understand AI or I don't understand what it categorically could mean, and so I'm afraid of it. But I think leaning into it and being slow to it, and quite frankly, going back to the basics, because what I did with my business, I think a lot of us get lucky even with disruption. I got a little bit lucky with the data centers. I didn't even share with you that about a year after I focused on data centers, then Microsoft and Google came out with this technology term called cloud computing. You can all laugh, trying to make a joke. I'm not a comedian. And literally, I remember thinking, that's a really dumb name. But okay. So like we're already doing it. Like we already have servers, but sure, we do cloud computing. And so we were like, hey, we do cloud computing, and we've done it for years. And so we ended up getting one like right away. We got like $70,000 in marketing dollars from Microsoft. Like they just handed over cash for like, oh, you do cloud? Oh yeah, well, here you go. Like why don't you go around with it? And so so we were lucky to an extent, but we also, I think, in hindsight, what we did well was focusing on what the market wanted, and that's really where we took off from going to from 6 to 7. I think we already were at 7 figures to be fair, but really 7 to 8 figures, 8 to 9, and then we ended up with our group basically about 850 employees, and got bought by HP when they split. And don't think too highly of me. I was not the CEO of HP or anything like that, but we were on that journey, and they turned around and merged and bought somebody else. So, but being on that journey, I think it was because we actually niched down. We did adopt the technology at the time. And back then, it was cloud computing, not AI. And I think to go back to your question, Marcus, now it's AI. Like now, AI is absolutely a way they could revolutionize a lot of our businesses, but not because it's a fad, because it can actually help with the basics and help with that road to repeatability.
Yeah, so I think it's again we're the inner game community. I think everything revolves around mindset. So can you share a little bit of caution for people? Because I think there's kind of like three types of people that, and correct me if I'm wrong if you think differently, that will utilize automation and AI, which is the service provider that does it, the Lone Ranger business owner that's got to figure it out for themselves, right? Or the CEO type that has a team and then could hire the service provider. So, where to use to give caution to people, the people that don't adapt to the automations and AI to systematize their business and simplify for speed. Um, what would you caution them on, like 5 years from now, where their business probably won't be if they don't start learning and adapting against their competition?
Yeah, so great question. I think it goes back to the basics. Every business, in my opinion, is sales, includes sales, marketing, operations, and finance, right?
Hmm.
Even if you're a one-man band or publicly traded company, you still have to address those areas. People have to know who you are. They have to transact with you. They have to consume whatever it is that you do, and then they have to pay you for it, right? And I would say if you're not staying with the basics of getting your product and service out there and doing it profitably at good quality, that's what's going to put you out of business in 5 years, right? It's not exactly whether you're using whatever, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok. Like it's not necessarily about that. It's more about, are you able to change your prices or change your margin or fulfill fast enough or whatever
Hmm.
in this world of changing environment. And if you don't understand the market metrics of what's happening, that's really what's going to be the issue. I'll give you a great example if I can, which is Google AI. I don't know anybody that really saw it coming, because if you're like me, and I'm arguably pretty much on the front line, I just like woke up one morning and I was doing a Google search, right? And all of a sudden Google is like recommending answers using AI. Like, and they didn't announce it that I know of. I mean, maybe they did, but you can keep me honest. But I don't think they did. Like, I don't think they ever said, "Hey, next month we're going to be stopping all ads and all search traffic." But you might be already affected. they're hijacking organic traffic in ads
Mm.
because Google is now using their AI answers to give people prompts and pushing ads in organic traffic down. And so I'm talking to people all the time where all of a sudden their web traffic has fallen flat. Their ads prices have skyrocketed. Not to mention other problems with marketing. And that's an example of if you really don't understand how AI is going to affect you and you're not using AI to help you grow at the basic level, that's where you can really get in trouble, and you've got to stay up to date as a business owner or CEO, business leader on those types of things.
Awesome. Yeah, I have one question that I want to ask, but before I do, if anyone has questions, throw them in the chat right now while I'm asking Brian this last question. Tool set. Go ahead, Marques.
No, real fast before you ask a question. Everybody, Brian, it's so interesting. And Vic, we talk about this. Everybody that I coach on this call, right? I see Lisa's on here. I see Dr. Chitwood, Michael Price, phenomenal people on this call, right? What are the 5 key areas, you all, Juliet, Colleen, that we talk about in a successful business? What are the 5? Branding, marketing, sales, ops, finance. Brian hit the 4. The only one I added, Brian, was branding, which is basically telling your story, which is why you and I worked together when I came down there for the branding video that we did at your place. But isn't it interesting, everybody? Right. Isn't it interesting? Like, it's interesting. People say, like, well, Marques, how do you know this stuff from coaching? And I'm like, well, I've been in business. I've made money. I failed. I lost it all. But again, Vic, Brian.
I thought you were going to say it's because you had breakfast with Brian and Sallee.
Well, that's part of it too. But like I've already said, branding, marketing, sales, ops, finance. Yeah. 5 keys of any successful business. If you don't have those 5, something will get missed. Okay, Vic, you're up.
Yeah, so for tool set, because I think we kind of talked about mindset, skill set. Now, tool set, if people wanted to start, do more learning, to start catching up on the times that we're going through right now with the speed of automations and AI, is there a couple tools that you would recommend that they just kind of start looking into and tinkering with?
Tools? You're going to ask me the shiny object question.
Yeah. So like, right, an example like Make, right? Because Make does automations, or Zapier, right? Because I think they're competitors. Or even just hopping into ChatGPT and start using the damn thing. Because the more you use ChatGPT, the more you realize like so I'll give this example. So since it came out, I've been using it, and more my brain has been adapting to use ChatGPT. Because a lot of us, like high achievers, are usually like, you're doing the thing or you're building the thing and you're in it, and you just, whatever it is, whether it's writing copy, building something, creating a workshop, doing a training, writing SOPs, it's like ChatGPT could help you and do all of that for you. You just need to learn how to like utilize your brain and create prompts to do it.
Yeah, so you're asking just for some tools that I'm using there out there.
Like tools that people could start looking into and learning about.
Yeah, so I'll share one that this is free. You guys should charge for this. I don't know. As Clay, have you guys put your hand up if you've heard of Clay?
I've heard of it, haven't used it.
Clay's honestly kind of ridiculous. I don't even know if I have my mind wrapped around it. It's basically like not anything, but it's everything. And it is over 100 premium data sources. I just pulled it up, so I'm going to make sure I say it correctly. 100 premium data sources and AI research agents on one platform. And it kind of integrates with literally everything from data enrichment to lead generation to content production. And I've been using it for a couple of my brands and a couple of customers. And here's kind of how I think. I'll open the kimono a little bit. Is but almost like check out Clay, like watch the 2-minute video, and then like promise me you'll close your laptop lid and grab a napkin, a piece of paper, or a whiteboard, and just think about your business and kind of dream a little bit, right? And I think Victor Market could probably help you. Like if you wanted to 10x or 20x your business, like what would have to happen? And you can probably come up with that answer. You'd say, well, I would need this, super high end influencer to like, give me a shout out, or maybe I would need this contract or something like, what it is, and figure out what that is on paper. Then go to something like Clay, because Clay could potentially get you a lot closer to either that audience, that level of automation. Like, oh, I need to reach out to 1 million people per day via Twitter or X or whatever, or I would need to email 500 people per day or make 500 phone calls per day. That's kind of what Clay can do in terms of providing all tip data. So that's what I'm playing with, and a lot of use cases for it.
Yeah, I have not learned about Clay yet, so now you've just got me intrigued. So, Brian, why don't you?
I'm definitely playing with Grok now, only because it's the newest, and I don't really have an opinion on it. By the way, that's not a statement either way. But oh yeah, great question. It is CL. Yeah, it is. It is Clay. .com, CLAY.com. I do not own any stock in this. I don't necessarily endorse it. If you use it and hate it, don't call me. Don't complain.
Thanks, Juliet. That's
Just something
awesome.
fun to check out. And then yeah, I mean I'm playing around with Grok a lot. Grok is out there, and then what is it? DeepSeek, or the new Chinese AI. We probably should all be aware of it, quite frankly. I'm being a little careful with what data I upload to it. But there's some of that stuff that's good to know and play around with and see if it's a good use case for your business.
Yeah, so ultimately, it sounds like people just need to start playing around with AI. So then you could start learning use cases and getting familiar with it.
Yeah, especially if you know what it is in your business that's going to move that ball down the field. In fact, Marcus, I think you and I talked about this on the podcast. Is shoot, I need more coffee. I feel like an idiot here at the football expert, but this is the football. Who's that?
John Madden?
The John Madden. He's
Yeah.
like his first day on the job. He's like, "Hey team, this is the football. Like,
Mhm.
we have to get the football over the touchdown. Like, touchdown 7 points. Like that's it. Like we can't lose focus of what puts 7 points on board. Like that's what we're playing for. And don't lose focus. Whatever AI tool you're trying, don't lose focus of what puts money in your bank account,
Mm.
what provides good service to your customers, what keeps you, in my opinion, from not having to work after 5 o'clock.
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of personally separating family and work, right? Like I get home, I put my phone down. That's just personal choice for me. Um, how can AI help you do that? How can AI help you make way more money? Alex Hormozi talks a lot about that.
Hmm.
How can AI help you raise your prices? How can AI help you raise your margin? By the way, that's really the question.
Hmm.
Let's talk about margin for a minute. What product or service do you have that maybe you really only make 5 or 10% margin on, whether it's your own hourly time or whether it's, divide your revenue across how many employees you have, and then try to figure out how AI can improve your margin.
Mm.
Um, my mentor built a $300 million company here in Tampa by selling, honestly, washers. I mean, he poked a hole in a piece of metal because he could produce a washer for a penny and sell it for 10 cents.
Mm.
And that's what paid for the private jets, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Go ahead. Sorry, Brian. Continue.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think this is a good example, real quick, to share. Is you were mentioning repeatable. So my wife, repeatable processes. So my wife has a loan processing business, and she's gotten crazy busy. Way too many loan officers. She started hiring some VAs, and so I hopped into her business for a couple weeks. Absolutely hated it because I'm not an I dot or T crosser, but I could build things. So I learned her process, and I was like, this could be totally automated. So, right, with a little bit of AI, with some automation. So now I knew the process. And then so I went, hired someone off of Upwork, um, from India, and they used something with Google, I don't know, Google something that could read the documents and name the documents and all that. So she has a process of she'll open a file for someone getting a home loan. It'd be like 30 documents to 40 documents. First thing she's got to do is she's got to go in and look at each document and then name it. She's got to give it a specific naming convention, and then like if it's a bank account, the 4 digits, right? Because then they constantly hop back in and out of these files. And so then I helped her do that for a little bit, and um, it's literally probably 20 to 30 hour a week job just doing that with the amount of files she has. And so I hired someone from India, from Upwork. We created it, took about a month to develop it. Now, all she does is she just puts the file in her Dropbox. We have something that's attached to it from Dropbox, and we gave her a little
Brilliant.
dashboard, right? She says what file it is, and then boom, within 5 minutes, all those documents are now named, right? So it's like,
Brilliant.
and I give that just as a use case of those types of things that you could do inside your business.
Say,
Brian,
buy back your time, right? She then gets that 20 or 30 hours back to focus on other things.
yeah. So Brian, before we hop off, can you share a little bit about if this is what it was, your digital transformation consulting that you do for people?
Absolutely. So digital transformation it's kind of a fun word, but it really is a great descriptor that we like to come into businesses and help them figure out what could be changed by using a digital technology of some type. And I like seeing digital instead of AI because AI is hot now, but it wasn't necessarily 2 years ago, and it may not necessarily be next year. But to take a look at your core processes, what moves the ball down the field profitably, and find the right technology to implement quickly that will do it without being that will be disruptive in a marketing way, but not disruptive in terms of your cash flow and bank account. That's the difference, right? We don't want to disrupt our business to where we can't pay the bills. But we do want to disrupt the business in the sense of people thinking about us or coming to our brand for whatever reason. So yeah, that's kind of our product is doing that assessment. It's one of the favorite things that we do here is helping people take a look at their business and find the answer. And in many cases, once you figure it out, executing on it is often very, very cheap or free. Not always, but sometimes the actual execution. It's just figuring out what needs to happen and which of the million plus softwares that are now out there that actually will make a difference in your particular business.
Yeah, so in that, you help people first dive into their business, then help them create a blueprint for that, right? Like what they need to
We
do.
do.
And then the execution process. Obviously, you don't do the executing, but then on top of that, you also hold their hand throughout the process while they are executing it, right?
We do, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Brian,
Help them design what we call the ultimate blueprint for growing and scaling the business. It's particular to them individually.
I put your information in the chat so people can connect with you if they want to get more information. Like I said, I've worked with Brian personally, so I can attest to his skill set and his ability. And yeah, Victor, 3:31, man. You want to have some closing remarks?
Yeah, I think that's it. Brian, thank you for your time. Everyone that came today, let's unmute real quick. Let's give Brian the golf clap. Rah rah. Thank you, Brian, for your time. Appreciate
Thank
you
you,
very
Brian.
much.
Thank you,
so
thank you guys. Thanks for letting me share. This is fun
Thank
for
you.
me.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
he threw his website in there. So I would highly recommend if you're trying to stay in the race in business, it is time to start learning how you could digitally transform it, whether it's from, what did we say? Branding,
Marketing,
sales,
sales, ops, finance.
finance.
Yep,
Yeah.
you gotta believe it. And
Yeah.
by the way,
And
everybody,
I don't
go
say
ahead,
if I
Brian.
don't have anything to sell, but what I did tell Victor and Marcus is I can't do this for everybody, but I am willing to truly do a free Zoom call with each of you individually. at no charge, like no charge, no strings attached. If Victor, Marques, you're still okay with this,
Of course.
obviously, I really appreciate you guys inviting me, and I really do. I have found that just giving back, it always comes around. So
100%.
I love what these guys have put together, and you're in a very lucky group here.
And by the way, everybody, Michael Price was the winner of the signed football from last time. Congratulations, Michael. And so I sent him his football. So today, from this call, post by 9 p.m. Eastern time the value you found in today's call, and we're doing another drawing for an autographed football.
Awesome. Brian, again,
All right.
thank you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your knowledge. Everyone else, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you soon.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. See ya.